The day I discovered my wife married me for my money was the same day I learned she never loved my son at all. I'm Michael Rodriguez, and I never thought I'd be the kind of person to get blindsided by a divorce demand in my own living room, holding back tears while my wife waved papers in my face like a victory flag. I'm 42, a sales manager for a tech company in Atlanta, Georgia. The humid air and oak-lined streets make everything feel heavier than it should. My life wasn't always this chaotic. I used to think I had it figured out. Decent job, nice savings, a heart that still hoped for something real. But that morning when Sarah, my wife, looked at me with a smirk and said, "I don't need you anymore," it felt like the ground caved in. And it wasn't just the divorce that hit me like a freight train. It was what she said next. "Mom's bank account has $3 million. Michael, I'm set for life. You were just the ATM until I got it." My stomach churned. I'd seen hints of Sarah's selfishness before, little things like how she'd dodge chores or flash a smile to get her way. But this was a whole new level of cold. She'd married me, played the part of a caring wife and stepmother, all while waiting for her mother to die so she could cash in. And the worst part, she was dragging my mother-in-law's name through the mud, a woman who'd been nothing but kind to me and my son Tommy. I stood there, fists clenched, fighting the urge to scream. My mother-in-law had passed away just days ago. I was still raw, grieving a woman who'd treated Tommy and me like real family. Sarah's words felt like a betrayal of all of us. I wanted to lash out, to tell her exactly what I thought of her greedy, spineless plan. But something stopped me, a quiet voice in my head, maybe my mother-in-law's, saying, "Stay calm, Michael." So I took a deep breath, snatched the divorce papers from her hand, signed them right there. "Fine," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "File them yourself. Tommy and I are leaving." I walked out of that big Atlanta house, past the manicured lawn and the life I thought we'd built, feeling a strange mix of anger and relief. Sarah thought she'd won, but she was about to learn the hard way that $3 million she was banking on, it was a fantasy, and I knew it. Let me back up. To understand how I ended up here, you need to know where I started. I wasn't always this jaded. A few years ago, I was happily married to my first wife, Maria, a quiet woman who worked as a nurse. We weren't rich, but we were content, saving up for a house in the Atlanta suburbs. Our son Tommy was 5 years old, bright, curious, always asking why the sky was blue or how planes stayed up. Then one morning, I got the call that changed everything. Maria had been in a car accident on her way to work. She didn't make it. The grief was like a weight I couldn't shake, heavy and relentless. Tommy would ask when Mommy was coming home. I'd hold him while he cried, my own tears falling into his dark hair. Between life insurance and Maria's work benefits, I ended up with $250,000. It was more money than I'd ever seen, but it felt like blood money. Maria's parents, sweet folks in their late 70s, told me to keep it. "We don't need it," they said. "You're young, Michael. Use it to take care of Tommy and start over." I tried to share it with Maria's sister, but she only took a small amount. She insisted the rest was mine. "Maria would want you and Tommy to be okay," she said. So there I was, 39 years old, widowed, and sitting on $250,000. I kept working, throwing myself into sales pitches and client meetings. But when I came home to my little apartment, the silence was deafening. I'd make 2 cups of coffee out of habit, then stare at the extra mug, feeling that ache in my chest. Tommy would play quietly in his room, too young to understand but old enough to feel the sadness. I wasn't broke, but I was broken. I needed someone to talk to, someone to make the world feel less empty, someone to help Tommy smile again. That's when Sarah Williams walked into my life. Sarah was a sales rep at a partner company, the kind of woman who could light up a room with a joke and a smile. She was 38, with a warm laugh that made my chest feel lighter. We'd cross paths at work events, trading small talk about clients or the latest tech trends. One day, over coffee at a conference, I let it all spill out. Maria's death, the loneliness, the way I felt like I was failing Tommy. Most people would have squirmed or changed the subject, but Sarah listened. She asked about Tommy, how he was handling everything, what he liked to do. "Your wife was lucky to have you," she said, her eyes soft. "And Tommy's lucky too. You're a good dad, Michael." She laughed, but there was genuine warmth in it. "I'm terrible at relationships, My last boyfriend said I was too independent. Can you believe that? We started meeting up outside work, grabbing drinks at a dive bar in Midtown, talking about everything from music to our childhoods. Sarah grew up in Atlanta in the shadow of her mother, a successful businesswoman who'd built a chain of restaurants across the Southeast. Sarah's dad had died when she was young, leaving her and her mom to figure things out together. Mom's tough, Sarah would say. Had to be, but she's got the biggest heart. She'd love Tommy. I didn't see it then, but that comment should have been a red flag. One night, as we walked along the Beltline, Tommy between us, Sarah bent down to tie his shoe. "You're like a little scientist," she told him, pointing to the bug he'd found, "always discovering new things." Tommy beamed. He'd been so quiet since Maria died, but around Sarah, he started to come alive again. That moment made me feel hope again. The hole in my heart didn't seem so big anymore. A year later, when Sarah told me she had feelings for both of us, me and Tommy, I hesitated. Maria's memory still lingered, but I felt like she was telling me to move forward. So I said yes to dating Sarah, ignoring the whispers from friends who thought it was too fast. Then one evening over dinner at a barbecue joint, Sarah caught me off guard. "Michael, we're not getting any younger. Why don't we just get married?" Her eyes sparkled with that confident energy I'd come to love. I laughed, thinking she was joking, but she was serious. My sister told me to slow down, but Sarah's confidence was infectious. I thought maybe her easygoing attitude could balance out my overthinking. "Okay," I said, surprising myself. "Let's do it." It wasn't until after I said yes that Sarah dropped another bombshell. "Oh, by the way, I'm living with my mom," she said casually, like she was mentioning the weather. "She's been having health issues, needs some help. You cool with that?" I froze. She had mentioned her mom before, but not like this. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked, my voice tight. "Didn't want to scare you off," she said with a shrug. "It's no big deal. Meet her, and you'll see." I wasn't thrilled, but I agreed to meet her mother, hoping it wouldn't change things. Little did I know that meeting would shape everything that came next. Walking up to Sarah's mom's house in suburban Atlanta felt like stepping into a different world. The place was big, 3 stories, red brick with a wide lawn shaded by ancient oaks. But it wasn't flashy. It was the kind of home that screamed old money, practical but impressive. My stomach churned with nerves. I'd heard Sarah talk about her mom, a successful restaurant owner who'd built half the family dining spots in Georgia. But meeting her felt like a test I hadn't studied for. Tommy clung to my hand, wide-eyed at the size of the house. Sarah, as usual, was unfazed, swinging open the gate like she was strolling into a park. "Relax, Michael," she said, flashing that grin. "Mom's going to love you both." Inside, the house smelled like vanilla and old books. Sarah's mom was waiting in a comfortable chair, propped up with pillows. Her face was kind but tired. She wasn't bedridden, just frail, needing a hand to get around. "Sorry to meet you like this," she said, her voice warm despite the strain. "I'm not as spry as I used to be." I smiled, trying to hide my nerves. "No trouble at all, Mrs. Williams. It's great to meet you." Tommy hid behind my leg at first, but when Mrs. Williams asked if he liked cookies, he perked up. "What's your favorite kind?" she asked. "Chocolate chip," he whispered. "Mine too," she said with a wink. "Sarah, get this boy some cookies, the good ones." We hit it off instantly. She asked about my job, selling software solutions in a tech market that was shifting faster than I could keep up. "Tough business," she said, her eyes sharp. "Everyone's going cloud-based now. You focusing on integrations or new markets?" I blinked, surprised. Most people glazed over when I talked shop, but she got it. We dove into a conversation about market trends. For a moment, I forgot I was meeting my future mother-in-law. It was like talking to a mentor. Meanwhile, Tommy had found her collection of old photo albums. She was showing him pictures of her restaurants, explaining how she started with one small diner. "Built it from nothing," she told him. "Just had to work hard and treat people right." Sarah, meanwhile, was on her phone, clearly bored. "Mom's stingy," Sarah muttered later as we left. "Could have built a mansion, but no, we're stuck in this old place." I frowned, glancing back at the house. It was bigger than anything I'd ever lived in. How could Sarah call it stingy? But I let it slide, too caught up in the warmth of her mom's welcome. When Sarah and I got married a few months later, We moved into her mom's house. It made sense. There was plenty of space, and her mom needed help. Sarah had a big idea. She'd quit her sales job to take care of her mom full-time. "I've been a lousy daughter," she said one night, her voice softer than usual. "Mom's done so much, and I've been focused on my career. I want to step up, be the homemaker." I was skeptical. Sarah wasn't exactly Ms. Responsible. Her purse was always a mess of receipts and loose change, but I admired her heart. "You sure?" I asked. "You won't miss work?" She shook her head. "I'd regret not doing this more. I can always go back later." I nodded, hoping she meant it. My salary was enough for us, and her mom covered her own expenses, so I agreed to let Sarah handle the house. At first, it was great. I'd come home from long days pitching software to find Sarah cooking dinner. Nothing fancy, just burgers or pasta, but it felt like a home. Her mom would share stories about her restaurant days, how she turned a failing diner into a community gathering place, how she'd give free meals to families going through hard times. She wasn't just a businesswoman. She cared about people, always thinking about others before herself. Tommy adored her. She'd help him with homework, teach him to bake cookies, read him stories before bed. For the first time since Maria died, he had a grandmother figure. "You've got a good heart, Michael," she'd say. "Don't let my daughter take advantage of that." But the cracks started showing fast. Sarah was diligent for maybe a month, vacuuming, grocery shopping, helping her mom with small tasks. Then she got sloppy. I'd find her sprawled on the couch, scrolling through her phone while dishes piled up in the sink. "Dinner's handled," she'd say, pointing to a takeout bag on the counter. I'd bite my tongue, too tired from work to argue. Her mom noticed too. Her face would tighten whenever Sarah slacked off. One day she pulled me aside. "I'm sorry, Michael," she said, her voice low. "I thought marriage would straighten her out. She's always been careless with responsibility." I forced a smile. "It's fine," I lied. But inside, I was starting to see Sarah's true colors. Things got worse when I noticed money missing from my account. I'd given Sarah access for emergencies, thinking she'd be responsible. Big mistake. One afternoon, I came home to find a shiny white BMW parked in the driveway. "Whose car is that?" I asked, my voice sharp. Sarah didn't look up from admiring a new designer handbag in the living room. "Mine," she said like it was no big deal. "You got your fancy bathroom renovation from Mom. I deserve something too." My jaw dropped. The bathroom wasn't my idea. Her mom had overheard Tommy mention the bathtub was too high for him to climb into safely. She turned it into a full renovation with a walk-in shower and kid-friendly features. It was practical, not a luxury, and it helped everyone in the house. Sarah's car? That was $30,000 of my money, gone without a word. I checked my bank account later that night. She'd spent nearly $50,000 in a month. Car, handbags, spa treatments, jewelry, you name it. I was furious, not just at the money, but at the entitlement. "You can't just take my savings, Sarah," I said, slamming the bank statement on the table. She shrugged. "Mom's loaded. Once she's gone, we'll be set. What's the big deal?" I felt sick. She was already counting down to her mom's death, like it was just a matter of time before she hit the jackpot. I wanted to walk out right then, but I looked at her mom, frail but still so kind, and at Tommy, who'd finally found stability again. I couldn't leave them with Sarah, not yet. Living with Sarah in that big Atlanta house started to feel like walking on eggshells. I'd come home from grueling days at the office, pitching software to clients who wanted miracles for pennies, only to find Sarah glued to the couch, surrounded by empty takeout containers. The house, once warm and welcoming, felt like a battlefield. I'd cook, clean, and help Tommy with homework, all while Sarah claimed she was taking care of her mom. But I saw the truth. She'd hire a part-time caregiver to handle her mom's needs, freeing her up to do nothing but spend my money. One evening, I snapped. "Sarah, what does homemaker mean to you?" I asked, pointing at the sink full of dishes. She rolled her eyes. "Relax, Michael. I got Mom covered. You're always so uptight." Uptight? I was working 10-hour days to keep us afloat while she treated my bank account like her personal shopping fund. I checked my statements again. Another $10,000 gone, this time on a luxury spa weekend in designer clothes. I confronted her, my voice shaking with anger. "You're spending my savings like it's nothing. This stops now." She just smirked. "Mom listens to you, fixes up the house for you and Tommy. Why can't I have a little fun? Her money's coming our way soon enough." I felt a chill. She wasn't just careless, she was calculating, waiting for her mom to die so she could cash in. I took back my bank card that night, locked her out of my accounts. Sarah didn't even flinch. "Whatever," she said. "You'll see, Michael. I'm going to be set." Her confidence made my skin crawl. But I didn't argue. I couldn't shake the image of her mom, a woman who'd been nothing but generous, being reduced to a paycheck in Sarah's eyes. I thought about leaving, packing up Tommy and starting over. But every time I looked at my mother-in-law, I stayed. She deserved better than being left with someone who saw her as a means to an end. My mother-in-law and I grew closer through it all. She'd call me into her study, a cozy room lined with photos of restaurants and community events she'd supported. "Michael, you're too good for this," she'd say, her voice soft but firm. "I'm sorry Sarah's putting you through this." I'd brush it off, not wanting to burden her, but she'd insist on talking. One afternoon, she told me about her proudest achievement, a scholarship fund she'd created for kids from low-income families to attend culinary school. "Cost me a fortune," she said, chuckling, "but watching those kids graduate, worth every penny." Her eyes lit up when she talked about it. I saw the woman behind the money, a dreamer who cared about people, not just profits. She wasn't stingy like Sarah claimed. She was careful, spending on things that mattered. When I mentioned our back porch was getting wobbly, she didn't just fix it. She had it rebuilt with a ramp for her wheelchair, plus new decking that made the whole yard feel like a retreat. "Makes it easier for me," she said with a wink, "and Tommy gets a safe place to play." Sarah, of course, saw it differently. "Why is Mom spending all this money on you?" she snapped one night. "I asked for a new car, and she said no, but you get a whole damn porch." I tried to explain it was for her mom's safety and Tommy's well-being, but she stormed off, muttering about favoritism. My mother-in-law overheard and pulled me aside later. "Sarah's always been like this," she sighed. "Her father was the same, spent money like it grew on trees." I tried teaching her value, but it never stuck. Her voice was heavy with disappointment. I felt a pang of guilt. I wanted to fix Sarah, to make her see what she had in her mom. But I was starting to realize some people don't change. One day, my mother-in-law asked for my help with something serious. "I'm working on my end-of-life plans," she said, her tone matter-of-fact. "Nothing morbid, just want things in order. Sarah's not reliable. Can you help me sort this out?" I nodded, feeling honored but heavy. We spent hours going over her accounts, her properties, her debts. That's when I learned the truth about her finances, a truth Sarah didn't know. Her big restaurant expansion project had gone bust. She'd taken out a massive loan, using $3 million of her savings as collateral. If she couldn't repay it, the bank would take it all. She laughed it off, saying she'd planned to start one last venture to cover it, but her health was failing. "If I don't make it," she said, "the collateral's gone. Sarah needs to know that. But I'm leaving $80,000 in a separate account, for you and Tommy. You've been more family to me than she has." I promised to handle it if the time came, my heart aching at the thought. Sarah's behavior got worse after that. She stopped even pretending to help around the house, leaving the caregiver to do everything. She'd lounge in the living room, buying random gadgets online, a massage chair, expensive artwork, jewelry, using her own small savings now, but acting like she was untouchable. "Mom's got millions," she'd say, waving me off when I warned her to slow down. I kept my distance, focusing on work and my mother-in-law's stories to keep my sanity. I knew something was coming, something big, but I didn't know how soon it would hit. The day my mother-in-law passed away, it felt like the world lost a little of its light. She was gone just before her 80th birthday, taken by a sudden heart attack. The house in Atlanta, once filled with her warm laughter and stories, felt hollow. I sat in the living room, staring at the photos on the mantel, her cutting a ribbon at a restaurant opening, smiling like she'd just won the lottery. My heart ached, not just for the loss, but for the time we'd had, so short, but so meaningful. She'd been more than a mother-in-law. She'd been a friend, a mentor, someone who saw me and Tommy for who we were. Tommy was devastated. He'd lost another grandmother figure. I held him while he cried, my own tears falling into his hair. I was still reeling, barely able to process the grief, when Sarah walked in. Her face lit up like she'd just hit the jackpot. "Michael, we need to talk," she said, her voice dripping with excitement. I looked up, expecting maybe a rare moment of vulnerability about losing her mom. Instead, she held up a stack of papers and grinned. "Let's get divorced." The words hit like a slap. I stared at her, my mind struggling to catch up. "What?" I whispered, my throat tight. She didn't miss a beat. I checked Mom's account. $3 million, Michael. I'm set for life. I don't need you anymore. You were just the ATM while I waited for this. My blood ran cold. I'd known Sarah was selfish, but this was a new low. She stood there, waving the divorce papers, gloating about how she'd played me, married me to coast on my savings until her mom's money came through. And the way she talked about her mom, like she was just a stepping stone to a fortune, made my stomach turn. Then she looked at Tommy, who was quietly playing with his toys in the corner. And obviously Tommy's not my responsibility anymore. He's your kid, not mine. That's when I saw red. Tommy looked up, confused and hurt. This woman had been in his life for 2 years, had pretended to care about him, and now she was discarding him like garbage. I thought of all the times her mom had apologized for Sarah's behavior, the way she'd hoped Sarah would grow up. Now here was Sarah, spitting on that hope. I wanted to scream, to make her feel the weight of her betrayal. My fists clenched so hard my nails dug into my palms. But then, like a whisper, I felt my mother-in-law's calm voice in my head. "Stay steady, Michael." I took a shaky breath and looked Sarah in the eye. "Give me the papers," I said, my voice flat. She smirked, handing them over like she'd already won. I signed them right there, my pen shaking, but my resolve firm. "File them yourself," I said, tossing them back. "Tommy and I are leaving." I scooped up Tommy and grabbed our essentials, walking past the oak trees and the life I'd tried to build. My heart was pounding with a mix of rage and something else, relief. As I drove away, a laugh bubbled up inside me, unexpected and sharp. Sarah thought she was about to live like a queen, but she had no idea what was coming. That $3 million she was banking on, it wasn't what she thought. I knew the truth, and soon she'd learn it the hard way. A few days after I left, I was holed up in a hotel near downtown Atlanta. Tommy was asleep on the second bed, exhausted from all the upheaval. I was scrolling through apartment listings, trying to piece together what our life would look like next. My phone buzzed, and Sarah's name flashed on the screen. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hello," I said, keeping my voice neutral. Her voice came through like a storm. "Michael, what the hell did you do?" She shouted so loud I pulled the phone away from my ear. She was panicking, her words tumbling over each other. I let her rant for a moment, then said, "Calm down, Sarah. Tell me what's going on." She was practically hyperventilating. "I went to the bank to pull money from Mom's account, and they said it's locked. There's $3 million in there, Michael. What's happening?" I could hear the desperation in her voice. Part of me wanted to laugh, but I kept my cool. "You didn't know, did you?" I said, leaning back against the hotel headboard. "Your mom never told you about her business troubles because you never cared to ask. That $3 million, it's collateral. You can't touch it." "Collateral?" she sputtered. "What does that even mean?" I took a deep breath, remembering the hours I'd spent with my mother-in-law, going over her plans. "Your mom poured everything into that restaurant expansion," I said. "She wanted to give back, create jobs, build something lasting, but it tanked. She borrowed $3 million, using her savings as collateral. When she got sick, she couldn't start another project to pay it off. The bank gave her a grace period, but that's up now. The money's going to settle her debts. It's gone, Sarah." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You're saying there's nothing? $3 million, and it's just gone?" I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "There's another account, Sarah. $80,000. That's your inheritance. And before you ask, she left half of it to Tommy and me, $30,000, because we were family to her." Silence stretched on the other end. I could almost feel her world collapsing. "80,000?" she finally said, her voice breaking. I spent everything I had, Michael. I thought I'd get millions. I'm broke." I should have felt sorry for her, but all I felt was a quiet vindication. "You spent your money and mine," I said, my voice steady. "You assumed you'd hit the jackpot, but you never even talked to your mom about her plans. You just saw dollar signs." She started to stammer, begging me to help, to pretend the divorce never happened. "Please, Michael," she said. "You've got savings, a job. I've got nothing. I'm 38, unemployed, with barely enough to get by." I shook my head. "You made your choices, Sarah. You don't get to lean on me anymore. Figure it out." I hung up, my heart racing, but lighter than it had been in months. Sarah did follow through with her mom's will. She sent me the $30,000, probably because fighting over it wasn't worth the legal fees. I heard through mutual friends that she went back to sales, but the shock of losing her fantasy fortune crushed her confidence. She made mistakes, got chewed out by bosses half her age, and quit after a month. Now she's scraping by as a part-time retail worker, her savings dwindling with every bad decision. I don't wish her ill, but her troubles aren't mine anymore. As for me, I found a cozy house in Midtown with a yard big enough for Tommy to play in. I deposited the $30,000 in our savings, not to spend, but as a reminder of my mother-in-law's spirit, her generosity, her belief in doing what matters. Every time I check our account and see it there, it's like she's cheering us on, telling us to keep going. I'm back to long days at work, pitching software and closing deals, but now I come home to a place that's ours, filled with our own dreams. Tommy's doing better too. He misses his grandmother figure, but he's resilient. Kids are like that. We're building something new together, one step at a time. I'm not the widower lost in grief anymore, or the husband stuck in a lie. I'm Michael, and I'm raising my son the way his mother would have wanted, with love, honesty, and hope for the future. To everyone who's followed this journey, thank you. You've walked with me through heartbreak, betrayal, and the kind of comeback that makes you feel alive again. If my story stirred something in your heart, remember this. Sometimes the people who claim to love you are just waiting for their payday. But real love shows up when the money's gone and the world falls apart. That's the kind of love Tommy and I have, and it's worth more than $3 million any day. Keep fighting for what matters. Keep protecting the people who can't protect themselves. And remember, karma has a way of settling the score. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe to check out more stories on my channel.